The genocide of the Serbs in the independent state of Croatia, perpetuated by the Croatian Ustasa, was the systematic persecution and extermination of Serbs during World War II. To understand this genocide and tragedy, it is important to understand and explain why. Who are the Serbs? The Serbs have been around for a while. They are a South Slavic ethnic group native to Southern Europe who share a common Serbian ancestry, culture, and language. There are three elements that together forge the identity of the Serbs, together with the legacy of the Nemanjic dynasty: the Serbian Orthodox Church, the Serbian language, and the historical and spiritual home of the Serbs, Kosovo and Metohija. The Serbian Orthodox Church plays a huge part in the identity of the Serbs. The Serbian Orthodox Church was established in 1219 by its founder, Saint Sava. By the way, if you are ever in Belgrade, you should visit the Sava Temple. It is an architectural marvel and it is one of the biggest Christian Orthodox churches in the world. The Serbs, as a people, inhabit several places in the Balkans: in Serbia, in Montenegro, in Bosnia and Herzegovina, in Kosovo and Metohija, in Croatia. Now that you understand just a little bit of who the Serbs are, and I say just a little bit because these people have a lot of history. Now let's understand who and why they were targeted for extermination during World War II. Following the Axis invasion of Yugoslavia on April 1941, a German puppet state known as the Independent State of Croatia was established, comprising most of modern-day Croatia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, and parts of modern-day Serbia and Slovenia, and it will be ruled by the Croatian ultranationalist organization, the Ustaše. The Ustaša was a Croatian fascist organization that was active between 1929 and 1945, and they were formerly known as the Croatian Revolutionary Movement. And prior to taking power during World War II, they participated in a series of terrorist attacks against the then Kingdom of Yugoslavia. And one of those attacks led to the assassination of King Alexander of Yugoslavia in 1934. The ideological foundation of the Ustaša movement reached back to the 19th century when several Croatian nationalists and intellectuals developed ideas and theories about Serbs as an inferior race. One of those Croatian nationalists was Ante Starčević, who promoted the ideas of Croatian nationalism and the quote, purity of the Croatian people, and he wrote extensively how Serbs were an inferior people. These ideas will eventually develop into what the Ustaša became. The ideology of the Ustaša movement was a blend of fascism, Roman Catholicism, and Croatian ultranationalism. The Ustaša supported the creation of a greater Croatia that will span the Drina River and extend to the border of Belgrade. The movement advocated a racially pure Croatia and promoted the genocide against the Serbian people. The leader and founder of the Ustaša movement was Ante Pavelić, or as he called himself, Poklavnik. Prior to becoming a dictator of the independent state of Croatia, Pavelić was a lawyer and a politician for the Croatian Party of Rights in what was then the Kingdom of Yugoslavia. Because of his radicalization and called for Croats to revolt against Yugoslavia, he fled for Italy where he founded the Ustaša. On April 10th, 1941, at the behest of the Germans, the independent state of Croatia was created and Ante Pavelić was declared the leader. The Ustaša were now in power. The Ustaša moved quickly to establish control over their new territories by implementing racist laws similar to those of the German Nazis' Nuremberg race laws. On April 30th, 1941, Andrija Artuković, the Minister of Interior for the independent state of Croatia, signed into law a number of racial laws. These laws were adopted by the new fascist state immediately, beginning with the Legal Order of Races and the Legal Order of Protection of Aryan Blood and the Honor of Croatian People. These laws also benefited about 750,000 Bosnian Muslims whose support was needed against the Serbs, so Bosnian Muslims were proclaimed Aryans. These laws were created to strip Serbs from their citizenship, their livelihood, and their possessions. Serbs were also forced to wear an armband with the letter P on their arms, Pravoslavac, which means Orthodox. It is important to notate that these racial laws also affected Jews and Romani people. The Ustasha's ultimate goal was the creation of a pure Croatian state. To accomplish their strategic goals, Mile Burak, the chief ideologist of the Ustasha and Minister of Education for the independent state of Croatia, established a strategic goal for the purpose of creating their ethnically pure Croatian state. And the Ustasha strategy was the following: one-third of the Serbs were to be killed. Second, one-third of the Serbs were to be expelled from the territory of the independent state of Croatia, and then one-third of the Serbs were to be forcibly converted to Catholicism. It is important to notate that one of the main tenets of the Ustasha ideology was their Catholic faith. So much so that many of the Ustasha leaders that participated directly in the atrocities and the genocide against the Serbs were devout Catholics or priests themselves. The Vatican played a direct role in justifying and symbolically supporting the atrocities against the Serbs because they viewed the Serbian Orthodox Church as an enemy to their religious hegemony. You see, Eastern Orthodoxy was deemed inherently incompatible by the Vatican and the Ustasha with their new Croatian state project. On May 3rd, 1941, a law was passed on religious conversions, forcing Serbs to convert to Catholicism and thereby adopt Croat identity. And this was fully supported by the Vatican and its Pope at the time, Pius XII, who met with Ante Pavelic the evening the law was passed. This law was also welcomed and celebrated by the Archbishop of Croatia at the time and later convicted war criminal Aloysius Stepinac. So, how was the law against the Serbian Orthodox Church implemented? First, they will ban the term Serbian Orthodox and replace it with Greek Eastern faith. Also, a mass expulsion of Serbian Orthodox priests followed, and by September 1941, a total of 355 Orthodox priests were expelled. That was about half of the Orthodox clergy in the independent state of Croatia. Another implementation of this law was the systematic destruction of the Serbian Orthodox churches, which included churches that dated back to the 1200s and 1300s. Now, it is important to notate that this law against the Serbian Orthodox Church was inspired by a doctoral dissertation titled Mass Conversion of Catholics to Orthodoxy in the Croatian-speaking areas during the Turkish rule. And it was written in 1937 by a Bosnian Croatian Catholic priest by the name of Krunoslav Dragonovic, who would later use his position in the Catholic Church to help Ustasha war criminals and leaders escape to Latin America using the rat lines. And again, it is important to notate that the Catholic Church, the Vatican, and the Pope at the time, Pius XII, fully supported the policies of the Ustasha. On February 6, 1942, Pope Pius XII privately received 206 Ustasha members in uniforms and blessed them. This was seen as a symbolic gesture of support for the actions of the Ustasha, and it is estimated that between 200 to 250,000 Serbs were converted to Catholicism between 1941 and 1942. So now that we have established how the Ustasha set up their laws to persecute the Serbs, it is important to start talking about how the genocide against the Serbs was implemented by the Ustasha. If I could use one word to describe Ustasha, it will be their most infamous and evil creation, the Jasenovac concentration camp. Jasenovac was the only concentration camp during World War II that was fully operational and manned by an Axis ally. Ustasha Croats fully operated Jasenovac, and unlike German Nazi-run camps, Jasenovac lacked the infrastructure for mass murder on an industrial scale, such as gas chambers. And instead, it specialized in one-on-one violence of a particular brutal kind, and prisoners were primarily executed with the use of knives, hammers, and axes, or shot. Jasenovac was established on August 1941 by the Ustasha Supervisory Service, and it was one of the pillars and essential structures for the strategic goals of the Ustasha in creating their pure Croatian state. For right now, I will stop here, but stay tuned for part 2. Salud.